This is the recipe that I will be using to do the Almond Blossoms soap, and this is the inspiration picture. It's a painting by Van Gogh, and this is the mold that I will be using. It's a plastic drawer, and next you're going to see the fragrance, which actually gave me a lot of trouble. Cotton Blossom from Bulk Apothecary. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to prepare the branches and the trunk of the tree, and I'm using green. I could have used in brown, however, in the painting it does look green, so I went with green. I'm making the tree branches with soap dough. It is called process, and I'm using a recipe from sorcery soap. I am grabbing it because you don't want to have it exposed to air or it will begin to cure. And what I'm pretty much going to do first is use mica powder. You could also use cornstarch. Just because I'm going to roll it and I don't want it to stick too much to the tile that I'm using for this. When you use soap dough, you want to warm it up a little bit, make it flexible because it's being compacted inside the bag. I just did that briefly, and next I'm going to roll it with an acrylic roller, and I just want to make a flat form, and out of this I'm gonna cut the branches. The soap dough has already saponified, so I could actually touch it without gloves. It's been made for probably about a week now, and I don't want it all to be a even thickness. I want part of it to be thicker than the other because the branches, when they start thick, and as they progress they become thicker. So in this part, this is what I cut it so that the bottom part will be thicker than the top. And I start sort of putting it on the mold. It's not going to stay here before the pouring, but this will give me an idea of how big I need to make the branches. And I'm gonna cut a few more, and they're gonna be very irregular in shape because that's the way trees are. They're not exactly even. And I'm going to start sticking the soap dough to the other piece that I already have in a similar shape to what I want to make them. Once in a while, I will refer back to the picture that I have on my phone just for ideas. I am not trying to make an exact replica, just to give the general idea of the painting. Once I was done, I moved it out of this drawer and I put it back on the tile so that I could work on the soap. I was doing the soap at a relatively low temperature. The lye water was at 80 and the oils were in the 90s, like 95 or 98. And I decided to do something that I regret to have done, and that is that I added the fragrance to the oils. I had seen this done in some other videos, and sometimes it helps to delay, or if to delay trace. However, this did not happen with my soap. This is the moment when I added the lye water and I took the temperature and it was 95 at this point. And what happened when I started pouring the lye water is that I noticed that there were white speckles throughout the mix. And this is the first time that I've seen something like this. I hadn't experienced it before, and I suspected right away that it was because of the fragrance, because I have read about other people experiencing this problem that when they add the fragrance to the oils, instead of helping control acceleration, it's worse. It causes rising or acceleration. And in my case, I think both things happen. So even though I'm not even using a stick blender, just mixing it with the spatula, I can see more and more of these white specks. And I could tell right away that it's the oils. I'm using lard and I'm also using coconut oil, and it seems those are might be the first ones to react. So once I start doing the stick blender, I can feel how it is becoming very thick at the bottom. It almost looks like cottage cheese. If you've ever tried making your own cheese at home, and I have, this is what it looks like. You know, when the whey separates from the milk fats. And so I did not freak out though, because I have had acceleration before, not quite like this, and I had used this fragrance before, but it wasn't this bad. I was using 3 ounces of the fragrance, and you can see here how it's becoming really cuddly and just awful. So at this point, I did not want to use the hand blender anymore because I was afraid I was going to break it. This was when I realized I wasn't going to be able to do the design that I had in my head, you know, to do different shades of blues and darkers and lighter tones. That wasn't going to happen. But I was still trying to determine if it was going to accelerate or if it was just going to be a bad case of rising. What I should have done at this point is that I should have added more water and possibly a little bit more oil, because my super fat at this moment was 5. So I could have done with having a slightly higher super fat. It is also in moments like this that I appreciate suppliers that are very transparent with the characteristics of their fragrances or the fragrances that they sell. For example, Brambleberry. They're usually very upfront at telling you this will cause acceleration or this will cause rising, or it could be slight or heavy, or it will cause discoloration, whatever. I appreciate that, and they even put that on the bottle. Bulk Apothecary, on the other hand, it doesn't say anything. They don't tell you if it's going to accelerate because I don't think they test their products, and you have to rely on user reviews. And for this particular fragrance, there were only like 6 or 7 reviews, so there was not much to go off, and I don't think any of them mentioned whether it rised or not, because most of the people had bought it to do something else with it, like lotions or room, you know, deodorizers. Um, so after I had mixed it some, and I felt I had a consistency that was homogeneous, I added the color because at least I figure I should have it color for the background, even though it's not going to be different shades. So I added the mica in with a whisk. I just started mixing as much as I could, and I did get most of the mixed color, but not all of it. So I will be curious to hear back from anybody who makes soap who has had something like this happen to them, if their soap was okay at the end of this, just based on what you're seeing, what happened to mine. Because I did have doubts after that perhaps something is going to be wrong with the soap. And so I do plan on testing the pH level to make sure that it's not too light heavy and that it's safe to use. But I need to wait at least, I think, 3 days to do that. So once I do the pH test, I will update the description of the video just so you know, because you will see that on the final pictures of the soap, you can see tiny pieces of uncolored soap that look like grain of rice, and that is what raisin is. And I have seen other people's soaps, and they also have that, and they haven't made any comments. But I'm curious, even though I'm not going to be selling this soap, it's gonna be for my own family use. Um, I do want to know just to learn from for future experience. So then I just pour it onto the mold. I didn't line it. I usually have not had any issues with plastic containers that I use as molds, even though they were not designed to be molds. And I did my best to make it even and try to later simulate maybe brush strokes before adding the branches. And I just dipped them into the soap. It was definitely thicker, and so sometimes I did have to push hard. And what was next was adding the flowers, and that took a while. So the last flowers, I really had to push harder to make them go into the butter. And I did try to distribute them among the soap so that every bar will have some flowers. This is what the soap looked like at the end, and after a couple hours of curing, these tiny dots are the ones that had me concerned. Alright, so I think I'm ready to unmold and cut this. This mold did give me a very clean release initially. You can see here how the sides are not sticking. However, yesterday I put it on a heating pad and that made everything mushy again, and while it was mushy I did try to release it, and so there is some stickiness showing there. However, initially none of this was stuck to the sides. I'm going to start by releasing the airlock by pressing on the back of this. Now if it was, you can see here how the air is starting to release. Okay, hopefully this is ready to be unmolded now. It does not feel warm to the touch anymore, and it was feeling warm at least at the bottom earlier on when I attempted to cut it. I am going to put a towel just so that it's not too hard. This is the part that is, the airlock has been released, and this other one still remains to be released. So I'm pushing with the palm of my hand, and I can see how it is releasing slowly. I'm also going to pull on the edges, and I'm making pressure to keep releasing the airlock. I'm also going to pull on this end so that I can see how this edge is beginning to release as well. And I can see how this part of the soap is actually already almost touching the towel, and this part is beginning to release as well. So I keep making pressure with this. If I had not had if I had used a different fragrance, one that didn't rise or accelerate, I would have been able to just very easily remove this from this mold that this make mold drawer that I'm using, because I've been able to use similar materials with no problem in the past. And now this is the next day. Now this part is releasing on its own, and I think if I lift this up, this broke and this broke as well. You can see the parts where I have the butters where I'm guessing this is either coconut oil or lard, and it feels sticky. So the fragrance definitely did a number on this. I am going to try this mold again with a different fragrance. So now that this is done, I'm going to flip it. So I feel like I'm cutting a cake. At first I didn't know how to cut it, and I did the first 2 bars too wide, but later I just decided to cut them more in a vertical pattern. I'm almost done with the video. If you liked it, and if you want to see more or receive notifications of when I post more videos, go ahead and subscribe or give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching.